So these are a few of my favorite things: a soapstone, a ribeye, and the Kamado Joe Jr. Let's fire it up. Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and welcome to a good one. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you already know I'm a huge fan of the soapstone surface. I did a 4-way comparison not too long ago. If I can find that, I'll put a link down below. You can check that out if you haven't seen it. But the short version of that is the soapstone went up against cast iron, the stock alloy grate, as well as a caveman sear, and it absolutely had the best tasting steak crust. And so when Kamado Joe came out with a soapstone for the Joe Jr., I just had to add that to my bucket list of accessories for the Joe Jr., and I can't wait to see out if it's as good in the Joe Jr. as it is on its bigger brothers. So that's what we're doing today. We've got a massive ribeye steak. We're going to reverse sear it on our Joe Jr. and then crank the heat up to Inferno mode and see if we can get an amazing crust on the soapstone for the Joe Jr. Let me bring you a little bit closer, show you how we're gonna set up for today's cook. But before I do that, just bring you up to speed on everything that's happened so far. So after bringing this giant prime rib roast home, what I did is I cut it into individual steaks and I salt brined those for 48 hours in the fridge. I'm a huge fan of salt brining, especially thick cuts like this, about 3 inches thick for our steak, as it just really helps absorb all of that salt deep into the meat, so you get maximum flavor, maximum tenderness. Because of that, we're not going to be using any salt in our rub. So just about 20 minutes ago, before coming out here to get ready to fire up the grill, I went ahead and added some truff hot sauce as a binder, as well as some steak rub. And so the one I'm using today is one I've used before. It's mostly, raw granulated garlic, a little bit of paprika, some onion, and it's really low on the sodium count. So if you were to make it yourself, that's really what you want to look for: garlic, onion, some pepper, and a little bit of paprika, and we are ready to go to the races. So let me show you exactly how we're going to set up using the stock heat deflector plate for our reverse sear portion, as well as our soapstone for Inferno mode later on. Okay, so you can see I've already cleaned out the charcoal and added a little bit of fresh big block. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to drop in our deflector plate once we've got our fire going, and then we're going to cook on our soapstone, which sits in the top of our Indirect rack, just like this. There's not enough clearance to add a cooking grid on top of this, and so I don't want to get this too hot early on. Otherwise, that conduction heat of our meat touching a hot surface, I'm worried it may not get all the way even edge to edge doneness. I've never used a soapstone like this where I cook directly on it. I always have it acting as a heat deflector, and then it's ready for my sear. So I'm really curious to see if we're going to get a crust as good as normal, as well as that signature edge to edge even doneness. So that's the game plan for today. Let me know in the comments if you think it'll work out. Let me take this out, take you fast forward while we fire this up and start to build some heat in our dome. Okay, so now that we got a fire going, if you saw there in fast forward, I'll point it out just in case it was a little too quick. I haven't installed any of the extra components, and we want to wait till we see that 250, 270 degrees Fahrenheit on our dome thermometer before installing everything. And if you haven't heard this before, that's a really important step. Something that I think most people new to Kamado cooking is they throw the food on too early. And there's a few things that go wrong when you do that. One, sometimes you don't have clean smoke, and so you or maybe a loved one maybe doesn't love the taste of the food that you've cooked on your grill. That's often because you threw the meat on before you're getting nice clean smoke. The second mistake or issue that this causes is you're not taking advantage of the benefit of a Kamado cooker itself, which is where you get that radiant heat from a dome that's heat soaked, and that helps act like a microwave effect, kind of like a sunburn on a nice day, which it's not today, where you get that radiant energy that helps cook your steak evenly. And so, especially since we're sitting on a surface today, I'm a little bit worried that the conduction heat transfer might be too high. I definitely want to get the dome heat soaked. So that's the game plan. I've got the bottom vent right now all the way open, top vent all the way open. If you're using the daisy wheel, just go ahead and spin that to its max open airflow position and wait till we see some temperature. Then we're going to give it the hand test, which is just putting our hand on the dome and making sure it feels hot. Getting close to 300 degrees in this type of weather outside should feel nice at first, warm your hands, and then get a little bit uncomfortable. If I see 300 degrees and I can touch the dome and it still feels cool like it did just a second ago, we're not there yet. And usually what happens is you've got a piece of charcoal that is just ignited and a little bit of flame is kissing the bottom of our temp gauge, letting us think it's a little warmer than it's not. So no worries, just let that continue to rock and roll until it passes the hand test, and then we'll go ahead and drop in everything else. I'll rejoin you in a couple of minutes when we're up to temperature and we can get this bad boy on our Kamado Joe Jr. ready to put this brand new Soapstone to work. All right, so after a couple minutes, our grill is up to temperature. Now we went all the way to 400 degrees before we passed the hand test. That's again because our dome is really cold. It's just over, I think about 10 degrees Fahrenheit here today, so it's a little chilly. Took a little longer for that ceramic to get warm, but that's okay. The minute that we started to adjust our vents, our bottom vent down to 1 finger and our top vent using the smokeware rainproof cap, I'm about a 1/4 inch. If you're using the daisy wheel setup, you'd also be looking for just about a 1/4 of an inch or less visible on the daisy wheel pedestals themselves. As soon as we did that and dropped in our heat deflector plate with our Soapstone, our temperature is starting to stabilize. Right now it's reading about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to let that continue to stabilize so we get a little bit of heat in our Soapstone as well as our deflector plate, make sure that we're perfectly stable, and then we'll go ahead and throw on our steak. But before we can do that, let's go ahead and set up our meter. So today we only need 1 probe, so I'll just go ahead, throw that in past the line on the meter probe, and I'll set up my app in a few minutes to be able to track today's cook. I'm thinking somewhere around 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so will be a great opportunity to flip our steak. The plan for this cut today is to take it to anywhere between 114 and 119 degrees Fahrenheit in this current setup. Then we'll take it inside, let it rest. We'll remove our heat deflector plate and open up air to maximum Inferno mode and get that Soapstone roaring hot so we can blast sear our steak. Now, while we're resting, that steak will continue to climb another couple degrees, and then I actually want it to start cooling off before we do that sear so we don't end up overshooting our final target temperature, which for us today will be about 130 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit for a nice medium rare steak. That's the game plan. We'll see if it comes together in practice. So I'll rejoin you in a little bit once we've got the steak on. We'll flip it kind of halfway through and we'll be a little bit closer to that awesome taste test that awaits us at the end. See you in a bit. All right, our meter is reading 119 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's go ahead and now take the opportunity to get that steak off. I'll take it inside, let it rest. And while we're doing that, we'll go ahead, open our bottom draft door. I've already removed the top vent so we're getting maximum airflow, as well as setting aside our heat deflector plate. So now our Soapstone is getting ready for Inferno mode. Now I can already tell some of the fat has rendered out, which is going to be great for a sear surface. So hopefully we'll just get a great sear and no sticking. I'll rejoin you about 10-15 minutes once we've got our Kamado Joe Jr. up to searing temps. Can't wait, see you in a few. All right, our steak has rested and our Joe is blazing hot. So let's go ahead and throw this on for some Inferno mode action. The game plan here is just to let it sit about 20 seconds or so, move it around, and around the 40-second mark, take a little peek, see if we could take some more time or not, or if we want to flip it and repeat. I don't really want to go much more than 40 seconds at a time because I don't want to continue cooking down further into the steak and go from a nice crust to a grayish brown area to then eventually our medium rare. I want to try and preserve as much medium rare and have as thin of a crust as possible. So usually about 40 seconds at these high heats is exactly what we need to accomplish that. All right, let's move the camera close and sear off our ribeye. right, time for my favorite part of the night, the taste test. So I grabbed 2 pieces here, one without some of our smoked salt and some with our smoked salt, to see how we like the difference and if it's worth adding a little bit of finishing salt at the end. Let's go ahead and start without the salt. Oh my gosh, this is a good ribeye. We salt brine this for 2 days instead of my normal 1 day. I don't know if that's the difference maker here or not, but before we even get to that, that crust is perfect. Now we've lost our daylight. I'm trying to add a little bit of light. I'm sure it looks a little darker than on camera than it does in real life, but this is perfect. Amazing crust. The Soapstone already just as good on the Joe Jr. as it is if we were doing a reverse sear on the Big Joe. Let's go ahead and try our piece here with the smoked salt before it completely cools off on me. Okay, smoked salt. At first I didn't even notice the difference, but just as you're getting ready to swallow, all of a sudden a little of that smoky salt punch just amped up all the flavors in our mouth. Another 10-15%, and you're like, yeah, that's what we're after. That was incredible. So I'm really excited about this accessory. As soon as I saw it, I just knew it was one of those things we had to have. I'm actually curious if instead of using a pizza stone, if the Soapstone might also be something that we could use for doing pizzas on the Joe Jr. So I just love the utility that we just gained with it. We could do, I think, pizza because it's thicker and about the same size as the last pizza stone I bought. We can do steak just like what we did right now, get an amazing sear. Smash burgers, if it was just the wife and I think we could fit 3 or 4 on there, as well as seafood. So this would just be a mean, lean side dish machine, easy for me to say, if we were doing either some lobster, some shrimp, or scallops or anything like that to go with our main dish. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that 2 thumbs up. Really happy I got that. I can see myself using it a lot in addition to my Joe Jr. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. If you did, please let YouTube know by smashing that thumbs up button and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Until next time, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue signing off. And remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.